Does political ideology predict viewing China as a military threat? Motivation. The United States military is transitioning from focusing on counterinsurgency efforts towards more large-scale operations with near-peer forces. As the military is controlled by the democratic processes within the United States, the political ideologies of the populace of the United States can impact military strategy globally. Depending on which political party, Democrat or Republican, has majority control over the U.S. government, different parties can dictate foreign policy based on their constituents' preferences. As political rhetoric and government action can be wielded to appease less centrist bases of parties, it would stand to reason that people far left or far right can impact government policy far more than their centrist counterparts. If this is the case, can political ideology be an indicator of U.S. foreign policy? Research question. What explains an individual's view that China is a military threat? My theory is that people that self-identify as having a liberal political ideology are more likely to not view China as a military threat, as stated by Hirsch, De Young, Zhu, and Peterson in Compassionate Liberals and Polite Conservatives, Associations of Agreeableness with Political Ideology and Moral Values, 2010. Individual differences in empathy, communal goals, and the acceptance of outgroups all appear related to the personality trait of agreeableness, with those self-identified as liberal as scoring higher in agreeableness than their conservative counterparts. My hypothesis is that liberal self-identification is positively related to not viewing China as a military threat. The null hypothesis would be that liberal self-identification is not related to viewing China as a military threat at all. I expect to find that the self-identified liberals are less likely to view China as a military threat than the independents and conservatives. And here's my little flowchart on that. My independent variable, using the 7-point scale of liberal and conservative self-placement from the Ains 2016 study. The overall observations of Ains 2016, which applies to both of my independent and dependent variable, is 4,270 observations. For the independent variable, 3,303 of which there was an answer by the participant from the survey, and 908 of those that participated in the 7-point scale for the political ideology did so face-to-face, while 2,395 participants were surveyed using a web-administered method. For the China military threat data set, 3,584 of the participants had answered the survey. 1,015 of those that participated did so face-to-face, while 2,569 participants were surveyed using a web-administered method. The question for the political ideology 7-point scale was, where would you place yourself on the scale, or haven't you thought much about this? Questions 1 through 7 I used, 99, 8, and 9 were removed because they weren't useful. I scored a 0 as not liberal for 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then 1 as liberal for 1, 2, and 3. For the dependent variable, China military threat, the question was, do you think China's military is a major threat to the security of the United States, a minor threat, or not a threat? Not a threat, a minor threat, or a major threat to the security of the United States. I removed 6, 7, 8, and 9 from the analysis as they weren't applicable. I scored 0 as not a threat for 3, and 1 as a threat for 1 and 2. My bivariate correlation here are my findings. I found that my expectations were correct. There is almost a positive correlation between self-identifying as a liberal and not viewing China as a threat when compared to not self-identifying as a liberal and not viewing China as a threat. If one is liberal, they are more likely to not view China as a threat, and among those who identified as liberal, 14% didn't view China as a threat, whereas 8% of those who didn't identify as liberal didn't view China as a threat. Discussion. The likelihood of one not viewing China as a military threat increases if one is a liberal. Using data from Ains 2016, I was able to discover that there is a minimal positive correlation between not viewing China as a threat and being liberal when compared to everyone else on the political spectrum. Based on my findings, it may be true that because liberals generally score higher in agreeableness, they would be more apt to not view China as a military threat. However, my findings are potentially outdated, as much can happen geopolitically in 5 years' time, and I believe it is likely that more people across all political ideologies would view China as a military threat, with increased news coverage and material about China being a rising power. I do believe that more research should be done to determine how the American populace views China, specifically if it is a potential military adversary to the United States, or not, as such information is sure to have an impact on the United States geopolitical military strategy. Thank you for watching.